everyone. Today we are going to continue talking about Mary and her role as the mother of the church, and we're also going to be discussing how Mary reaches out to us. So we're going to reread the last two passages of page 224 of our textbook. So Mary has appeared to many people around the world. When she appears, she brings us messages from God. They can help to teach us how God wants us to live and how to be more like Jesus. Mary shows us that prayer, humility, and obedience keep us close to God. And the Bible passage that we were focusing on yesterday, and we'll revisit it today, is in the right-hand corner here. It says, "When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, 'Woman, here is your son.' Then he said to the disciple, 'Here is your mother.'" So we discussed yesterday that when Jesus said this, that means he was giving his mother away to all of his disciples, which means all of us. So today we're going to be talking more about apparitions of Mary. So if you don't know what an apparition is, it means an appearance. So an apparition is the appearance of someone in heaven to someone on earth. So what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to imagine that you're playing outside and you look up and you see Mary in front of you and she's telling you to do something for God. What do? How would you feel? What would you say? Now she sent you off to tell others what happened. Will you? Why or why not? So we're going to read some stories now of some people who had an experience with an apparition of Mary. So now we're going to be reading about an apparition of Mary in France, and she appeared to a girl named Bernadette. And while I'm reading this story, I want you to think of the question words: who is in the story? What is the story about? When did the events take place? Why they happened? And how they happened. So let's begin. Our Lady of Lourdes. In 1858, Mary appeared to Bernadette, a poor 14-year-old girl in Lourdes, France. Bernadette heard a gust of wind. Then she saw a lady in a hollow of a rock in a grotto. This was the first apparition of the Virgin Mary to Bernadette. Bernadette asked Mary who she was, and Mary answered, "I am the Immaculate Conception." Mary brought her message of God's love to a humble place and an ordinary person like Bernadette. Mary asked Bernadette to come and see her every day for 15 days. She asked Bernadette to pray and do penance. What does that word penance mean? Well, penance is an act that you do when you're asking for forgiveness for something. She also asked that a chapel be built at the grotto in her honor. During one visit, Mary told Bernadette to dig in the mud. A clear spring of flowing water appeared in the grotto. When Bernadette told others about seeing Our Lady, many did not believe her, yet she continued to tell others of the messages she had received. When people began to come to the grotto to use the water from the spring, miracles started to happen, making the faith of believers even stronger. So if we take a look at the bottom picture here, we can see the grotto that was mentioned in the story, and now there's a statue to mark exactly where Bernadette had her vision. And people to this day go to Lourdes to ask Mary for miracles or to pray to Mary. And it's been said that a lot of people who go there either get healed if they're sick, or they get the help that they need after they pray at the grotto. So when people go to a special spot where there's an apparition or something miraculous happened, it's called a pilgrimage. So a lot of people do a pilgrimage to Lourdes in France. Now let's read the faith facts on the right-hand side. It says, when Mary appears on earth, she continues to build the church. She often asks that a chapel be built in the location where she appears so that people may come to pray and renew their faith. So let's go back to those question words that we wrote on the first slide. So who is the story about? Well, it's about a 14-year-old girl named Bernadette and Mary. Where did Bernadette see Mary? Well, she saw her in a hollow of a rock in a grotto, or a small cave near Lourdes, France. And who did Mary say she was? She said she was the Immaculate Conception. And what does that mean, the Immaculate Conception? So, immaculate means without sin. So, Mary was created without sin, and she continued to choose not to sin all of her life. So, Immaculate Conception means that Mary was without sin from the moment she was conceived. So, why did Mary appear to Bernadette? And what did Mary ask Bernadette to do? Well, she asked her to come for 15 days, pray and do penance, to build a chapel and dig a hole in the mud. And what helped other people see that what Bernadette was saying was true? Well, when people started using the water from the spring, miracles started to happen. So, when a person prays and renews their faith, the person is doing a form of something called devotion. So there are many devotions directed to Mary. These are called Marian devotions. So they're in honor of Mary. So to finish class today, we are going to do a Marian devotion by praying a decade of the Rosary. So if you go back to our lesson page for today, you'll see a link to the YouTube page that I put up previously with the decade of the Rosary. You can grab your rosary and you can pray along, and I'll see you tomorrow.